Well, uh, finished up the core support videos. You guys got to see that. I still got to bolt these radiator mounts down, but it's pretty much done. But I was, remember on the suspension videos, I tried everything. I tried 8-inch arms, those aftermarket arms I got that I didn't even know who made. I tried Garrett's Speedway upper arms. For whatever reason, I couldn't get them to look like they were going to work. So I ordered 8.5-inch Speedway uppers. And ironically, the 8.5-inch Speedway uppers with 6 shims on each bolt, it was only able to get to 1.4 degrees negative, or top of the tire pushed out of the body line for the camber. Now I could have added more shims, but it would have taken at least 2 more shims to get to 0, and I would have needed a longer bolt. So I ended up ordering the 8-inch Speedway arms, and I put the 8-inch Speedway arms on, and here's where I ended up. If you can see past all this turbo goodness, I've got one 1/8-inch shim in the front, 4 1/8-inch shims in the rear, to try to get as much camber out of these style arms as I could while still getting, or caster, while still getting my camber adjustment. Well, I've already made the camber adjustments, and that setting right there got that to 0. So that's probably all the camber I'm going to be able to dial in with this style arm, and them not being adjustable. But probably a far better improvement than what I had. I'll show you guys a picture if I can, or you'll have to go to my actual Facebook page. You can see the difference in the arms that I had that were an 8-inch arm and the arms that just got put on it. These arms, guys, I've never seen. I don't know who designed those. If you look at them just sitting by themselves, they don't look like they're wrong. I mean, they look like a geometric 8-inch arm. Everything looks right. But this moves the ball joint and like severely angled it and in. So when the suspension was at ride height, it was in as far bound as it could be. So if the suspension actually traveled up, it's binding the ball joint. But that wasn't the only problem. I lined this up with the 8-inch Speedway arm, and this ball joint location, even though that looks right to me, that ball joint location was like 1/2 inch, almost exactly further forward than the Speedway 8-inch upper. Which means when I was trying to set those up before, my camber would have been either 0 or in the positive. And that's what started this whole series on the suspension, was I was fighting the truck wanting to wobble, almost like a death wobble. When it would go 70 or more, the steering, I would just lose control over the steering. I had no control. The tires would wobble just like a shopping cart with negative camber. It'd wobble all over the place and you couldn't control it, and it actually switched lanes on the road. It was that bad. And then I had to slow down to regain control over the steering. So I knew something was wrong. I couldn't believe in my mind that it would have been those arms. I was like, there's no way a company makes these arms every day and they're this far off. But somebody made those arms and they were that far off, because these, I'm guaranteeing you, the camber's absolutely perfect. I haven't got to check it yet. That's going to be in another video. But I can physically, with my own eyes, I can see the ball joint angle. The ball joint at the top with a plumb bob is behind the lower ball joint. So I know I'm getting positive caster. I just got to measure it out. And the way we're going to do that is the old school way, with a straight edge. I'm going to lay a tape mark on the ground. I'm going to take a protractor, mark 20 degrees, mark 20 degrees the other way. Then I take my dial gauge, turn the wheel to that first 20 degree mark out this way, zero it, turn the wheel this way, and take a reading. And that reading is the positive caster angle. It'll tell me what the actual caster ends up being. So we're going to check that too. And I got to clean up this garage. And then we got our new channel decal on the S10. I got to put one on Garrett's Blazer still. But I wanted to let you guys know on this suspension, this isn't really like a suspension video part 5 because I'm not doing any work on video. I'm just telling you what I ended up finding out. But another thing I found out, well, I found this out at the track, but I'm going to try to do this by setting the camera down and see if you guys can see this. Hopefully this thing will zoom. Good. Now if you watch right here, this is a vibration mount off of a Jeep. This is used. It wasn't factory S10. But watch this right here on the mount when I turn. You guys see that? It's literally moving. It's moving that rubber. And you want to say, well, that's probably okay because when the tires are rolling, they're not going to be in that kind of a bind. But what if it did do that going down the track and you're trying to drive it straight and you pull the wheel and then it slips? So you accidentally grab the wheel harder, and when it grabs, you're basically jerking on the steering wheel, and you're going to, I mean, that's going to be dramatic at 150, 160, 170 mile an hour, depending on how much boost you feed the thing. So what I did is I ended up ordering a solid shaft and 2 new U-joints from Jegs. But then I found that the Blackheart hooker makes a complete one that's got a 1-inch to 1-inch upper, this upper joint is a 1-inch double D to a 1-inch double D shaft. And what that's going to do is that's going to let it have a slip yoke like the factory already does, where you've got the 1-inch shaft over a 3/4 shaft. Well, the Blackheart steering shaft does that, and it was only, my racer price was $111, and the ball joints individually was $97. But when I make it with the ball joints, it has to be a 3/4 double D solid shaft, because Jegs doesn't sell 1-inch double D shaft. But I went to Blackheart one because it's already set up with a slip yoke, and it's going to make it putting it on and off the truck is going to be a whole lot easier. And when you're working on these things and you get in a hurry or you got a lot to do, you really don't want to have to fight changing a shaft by unbolting both ends of it and then sliding the shaft down in one side and then pulling it out. It ain't a big deal. I mean, it probably wouldn't have hurt anything to not have a slip yoke. But the other thing I was thinking about was this body is still mounted on a rubber style bushing. Now it doesn't ever seem to move. This body hasn't ever moved on me in 25 years. But if the body ever did move or tweak or torque or chassis flexed for some reason, something broke, it could potentially pull on that steering shaft, and it could either pull the steering shaft out or it could pull or push the steering shaft down, causing it to bind. There's all kinds of things that could happen. I mean, the what ifs are just what ifs. It may never happen. It may never be an issue, but something I was thinking about. So I went ahead and ordered the Blackheart steering shaft. The other thing I've did since you guys seen that I wanted you to see like up close and personal. Look how much of that turbo is open. That's awesome. I mean, that's my gauge, but look at that. Those things are going to be so happy now that they're going to get air. I was glad I took the time to make that core support and let them guys breathe. And it really wasn't a bad job for my first one ever. I probably could do it a lot quicker now that I kind of have an idea of where I would go and what I would do to make it work. But basically just wanted to give you an update on the suspension. I didn't want to take too much of your time up. But next thing we're going to be doing is we got to get on this. I want to get this thing done because we're planning to try to move in October to somewhere close to Bradenton, Florida. At least I plan on racing in Bradenton, Florida. I don't know if we'll be living in Bradenton, Florida. We kind of don't really have an exact plan of where we're going to move. But there's employment everywhere, and I'm not worried about a job because I've got pretty good work history and a lot of different kind of job knowledge. You guys want to see that steering I made from Garrett's Blazer? So I got the same Jeep top. Now this one is a solid spacer. There isn't one of those vibration joints in this for some reason, but it is a 1-inch double D shaft. It's going to get cut, with like an inch gap here, because this is actually 1 inch all the way through to here. Then it's riding in a 3/4 bearing. Now this actually gets turned. I'm going to have to notch a little bit of the header, and then I'm going to notch the frame and pull this over more. But it's fine. It doesn't hit the arm or anything. And then it's got another joint down here. And this steering box is a what they call it, shorty 525 manual gearbox. See, the yoke is actually on the end of it. But what that let me do was run this steering up like this and have it be bind free. It ain't tight and it ain't welded yet, but he's gonna have super effortless steering, and he's gonna have some nice setup around these headers. As you can tell, these headers, these are unhammered on. They're bolted on with 2 bolts, but there's no hammer marks. Everything is like super, tons of room. I don't know many S10s, if I've seen any, try to make a down and forward header setup work. But down and forward, man, this thing's way awesome because I get to keep my coil mounts. My plug wires are factory short. They're not going to grind on anything. I was really adamant about doing down and forward. I know some people would have just said screw it and run them up and move the alternator, but the other cool thing was the pulley setup. Really, I mean, that pulley setup really resembles like a factory setup. I made this bracket, which I could have done with the F-body bracket. That's almost the same location as an F-body alternator bracket, and it bolts in the same bolt holes. So I made that on a 1/2-inch aluminum plate to move the belt. Gives me plenty of room off of that Y pipe. So this thing's gonna be a pretty cool little street blazer. Still have wipers, and I think I can fit on this one. I can do a. He wants to run a stock hood, and honestly, it's going to be really close, but he might be able to. I know it's going to be close, but it's definitely. I mean, look how far down that's got. That plate's on there, and I mean, we're talking probably almost 20 inches between that and the hood line. It's the damn bonnet that gets you in trouble. when you run that bonnet, it definitely adds to the height, because that thing's 4 inches tall, 4.5 inches tall. We got to re-dip it. We had a lot of this body over the last 7 years of sitting. We've rubbed the plasti dip off. I'm thinking about, kind of part of me just wants to peel the whole truck and then dip it with the new, what's that new black? Shadow black. The Performance Series black that's even darker black. Because this is a nice matte black, but it shows dirt really well. See how they call the light and dark spots? Even when you clean this up, it still looks like it's dirty. For his first vehicle, I'd kind of like to fix that. That's a radiator support I made. And chassis tie. So the chassis cross member, this cross member goes straight across the chassis. And then, if you can see down there, is another cross member on plates where I cut that cross member out. Now that's actually, let me see if I can get you guys a light. I can't get you a light, but so this is another thing that everyone says you can't do. Can't ever do this on a Chevrolet. But that right there, fellas, that is a 5.3 factory truck pan sitting on regular mounts, right? Nothing special. And it is higher than the cross member. Does not hang down below it. It's close, but it is not below the cross member. And that right there is pretty awesome, because that's an extra quart of oil capacity. And when you're turbocharging the hell out of something, having an extra quart of oil and keeping the oil cool. We're not adding an oil cooler to this. Yeah, we are. We're putting an oil cooler on this. So with the oil cooler and the, I'll show you guys that adapter I bought. With the oil cooler and that pan, there's the oil cooler. I don't know. I wish I could get you guys wish I could get you this light to work, but it's got fittings going down. We're gonna mount the oil cooler. Of course, we're gonna put it up on the radiator, but those fittings are, I think they're a -10, 5/8. Now on this setup, I can still use the factory oil filter. Doesn't interfere at all, and nothing is in the way down there, so that's what we're planning on doing, so we don't have to have a remote filter. Turbo's going right there where the battery used to be. I'm making a bracket. It's going to come from, it's your factory battery tray sat here. This was a battery tray bolt, and this bolt was another battery tray bolt. So this is going to come across. It's going to have bar stock, bar across, and then it's going to bolt to the, this will work, at least I can show it to you. So I got a monkey fab, set you down. I got a monkey fab turbo bracket, and it's got attachment bolts. So the way this is going to work, that bar stock's going to sit like that, and then that monkey fab plate's going to bolt the turbo like this. So the front of the turbo is here, and this is here, and as you can see, S10 all over again, guys. Turbo's going to be right behind the core support, and you can see it ain't going to get any extra air. But we aren't going to push this thing to its limit. We're not trying to make 1,000 horse out of it. I won't even get mad if it makes 700 wheel. With that S475, I know it can. I know these motors are capable. I know I'm capable of tuning it to not blow it up. I've already got plans to do the restrictor on the trans, keep the converter drive pressure down. That's one of the things that'll kill these motors quick is thrust issues. LS motors got the worst thrust bearing issues of any motor I've ever seen. I've never seen a motor have that much issue with thrust bearings, but this motor, they do. So we're going to take care of that by doing the restrictor, and we'll never have to worry about that. And it is 100% stock bottom end. It's just cleaned up parts. I cleaned the pistons real good. I ported the heads. It's on BTR dual valve spring kit, stock valves. Really is absolutely nothing spectacular about it. But it's a cool setup for a kid that's about to turn 14 now. God darn, 14 years. Guys, I started on this thing when he was 6 or 7. That's horrible. I need to get up my ass in gear. But his truck has 8-inch speedway arms, just like the S10. He's rocking factory lowers off the S10 with the energy suspension bushings. And then he's got ground force 3-inch drop spring. And these are McGuffey's 2-inch drop spindles. So he'll be a 5-inch front drop, 4-inch in the back. He's got 1-inch tapered block on a 1-inch tapered block on cow tracks and drop leafs. So that's the plan on that. Now eventually this thing's going to get kicked out of every track we go to, and it's probably going to become a pain in the butt, and eventually we may end up gutting this interior and putting a cage in it, but we're doing all the wiring is currently loose on it. So that wiring mess, I hate wiring. But we're deleting all the HVAC wiring, all of the non-necessary wiring, all the factory stereo wiring is coming out. And we're building our own wiring harness for that stuff. His truck's still got full interior. And by full interior, I mean I even made, look at this thing. Tell me that's not American. Big, huge Chevy bow tie and blue LEDs. Those are all individual LEDs. And that thing is bright. So we're going to take care of that down the road. Probably end up putting a cage in it, but we don't know. I was trying to hold off on doing that as long as possible, just because I didn't want I hate the headache of climbing in and out. And then I got the option of doing the swing outdoor bars. And his truck isn't like mine. His will be different. I'll never do this again. See, my main hoop bar is just ahead of the door. And then it's got a recess bar. See that bar that wraps around the back? And that goes back and gets behind the seat brackets, all that stuff's on it. And then this was our first cage, guys. This is the first time we've ever done a cage. But that runs down along the door. It doesn't touch the door, but it's really close. But man, it makes seat mount for a person my height, and I know he's going to be tall like me, so it definitely screws up your room inside the cockpit. I really want to keep his Blazer. I want it to stay like full interior, back seats, everything. I want him to be able to drive it and be able to get in the back. And it ain't like we couldn't weld one up. They're not that expensive. But man, it's nice just to be able to pull a seat, climb in the back, take off. You know what I mean? So I don't know what we're going to do, but I don't think we're going to cage it. Man, I got a lot of wiring. Probably what I ought to do today is get on his wiring and start looking at this book and figuring out what all's unnecessary electrical. I think this is part of the radio. All these wires. I don't even know what that does. Hopefully we get it all gutted, get everything out of it, and it still works when we put it back together. We're doing a dash conversion. This is an 89. It has the big, ugly, stepped out dash. And he's getting an 83 S10 flat dash. This is the same style dash that's on my S10 that I love. Because he's getting gauges just like my S10. But look at that. See how simple that is? It's just a nice setup. It doesn't have that big kick out. You're not fighting for gauge space. And his setup is going to be the same. See that? They're black face gauges. And then off his accessory buttons. Push button. Push button on, push button off. It's going to be slick. Slick, slick, slick. Look at the bed of my truck. That's how you know I've been in the garage working on it. It's got miles and miles and miles of crap on the bed. That's all the shims I took out of the 8.5 inch arms. The shims for days. So I think I'm going to hop off here, get this posted, and I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning this garage up and get ready to start on the wiring on the Blazer. But I just wanted to give you guys some updates on what's been going on and what we've got done so far. And go from there. So we'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching.